Last week, we brought you through the fracking operation process, explaining what happens after natural gas is extracted. In the second part of my series on hydraulic fracturing, we take a look at why someone else may have more rights to minerals on your property than you do. Scientifically, a mineral is supposed to be a solid inorganic substance, such as these various crystals or rocks. But when you hear the term mineral rights, that refers to the legal right to extract minerals from the ground. It can be much more encompassing and include liquefied oil and gas. When you buy a piece of property, hopefully you read the fine print. That's because even though you own the land, you may not own the subsurface. That's right. Someone else could own the rights beneath you, and that could have far-reaching consequences.
If you are a surface owner and do not own the minerals, there is a chance that there could be oil or gas infrastructure that would appear on your property. Not without your knowledge. There would be a negotiation beforehand, but in most cases, the mineral ownership supersedes the ownership of the surface rights.
James Ladley is describing what could happen to your land when someone else owns the mineral rights to your property. It's an issue that has become more prevalent since hydraulic fracturing has provided a new way to extract natural gas from shale. Property owners have a right to be notified of what's taking place under their property, but beyond that, their rights are limited.
So if somebody owns their surface rights, they may not own their mineral rights. The owner of the mineral rights has the right to access those subsurface rights. So they may enter the property, they may disturb the property. They may build a road, they may put down a pipeline, they may actually even put a well pad on that property.
Originally, there was no talk of any horizontal drilling at all. It was all vertical wells.
John and Elizabeth Nider say it's been a nightmare since signing over mineral rights to their Ohio farm.
This horizontal drilling came in. That was turned out to be, as far as production goes, quite lucrative. Mostly for the company. We are doing okay with that, but it's not been without its issues.
But the issue isn't limited to just private landowners. It also affects state and federal lands. In Pennsylvania, whole sections of state forests are being fracked for natural gas.
In those areas where we don't own the subsurface rights, we have reasonable negotiations that we work with the operators to try to develop something that works for them, that they get access to their subsurface right, and also has a reasonable outcome with minimal impact on the surface for the state forest.
When mineral rights are activated in Maryland, the state requires minimal interference of the surface land and strict environmental regulations must be followed. For example, a wetlands area could not be developed, but Maryland is still in the process of learning who actually owns the mineral rights to state lands.
We don't own all the mineral rights to our public lands. We were starting to look at where our public lands are in Allegheny and Garrett County, which is the shale gas development area, and we've done research on the deeds to these lands and the parcels within these land units, and we've determined that we own solidly about 56% of the land, of the mineral rights underneath the land that we own. About 27% we know we don't own. Some other entity owns those mineral rights. About 17%, the remainder, we're not quite certain because this information is buried in deed history, and it takes quite a bit of research to winnow out that information.
The state must also decide whether it intends to lease mineral rights of public lands, such as Pennsylvania has done. That would require another set of regulations be considered and approved by the Board of Public Works.
We purchase our lands primarily for their surface value, for their ecological value, and one of our key concerns is that those values and the recreational activities that they support are not harmed through this activity. So we feel that we've tightened that up quite well.
And portions of this segment were made possible thanks to a fellowship from the Institute for Journalism and Natural Resources. Stay tuned next week for the third part of my series on fracking. We'll take a look at why some people are concerned that waste coming from fracking sites may be radioactive.